Thousands of Sudanese demonstrators protest outside the nation's military headquarters, demanding an immediate end to military rule. A three-day referendum starts Saturday on possible changes to the Egyptian constitution that would allow President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to remain in power for another decade. The Mueller report finds no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, but questions remain on whether the U.S. president tried to obstruct justice. We'll have a report. Africa 54 starts right now. Good evening, I'm Esther Gidhu. You are in for Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Thousands of protesters packed the area outside Sudan's defense ministry on Friday, demanding an immediate end to military rule. Today's sit-in is the biggest demonstration in Khartoum since last week, when former President Omar al-Bashir was ousted in a coup and a military council seized control of the country. Protests erupted as the nation's new military rulers announced the arrest of two brothers of al-Bashir on corruption charges. Many professional associations, including the Sudanese Association for Engineers and Lawyers, joined the sit-in demonstrations in front of the Sudanese military headquarters.
We see the fall of this regime is just in name only, because the symbols of the regime have not been arrested yet. The blood of our martyrs is as if it is going to waste, because there has not been a punishment for the people that killed them. There is a large number of detainees that are still inside. We are asking for a civilian government. This is supposed to be put together. Still, it has not been agreed on. We are trying to liberate the government from the colonialism of the NCP regime.
Ismail Mohammed, a 23-year-old medical student, has spent most nights at the sit-in to keep the protest momentum going.
We need to hold the corrupt people accountable for the blood that was spilled. These people that died, they should not die in vain. There has to be some accountability. Killing is not for nothing.
Sudan's military leadership ousted Omar al-Bashir last week after 4 months of street protests against his iron-fisted 30-year rule that was marred by conflict, civil war and corruption. Al-Bashir is also wanted for genocide and crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court for atrocities committed in the western region of Darfur. Now to North Africa, where a mortar shell slammed into a residential area southwest of Tripoli Thursday in a continuation of 2 weeks of clashes between UN-backed government forces and the Eastern Libyan National Army. Germany's ambassador to the United Nations, Christoph Heusgen, expressed concern that the rockets had been fired into civilian areas.
We want to have a strong resolution, and a strong resolution with a united council, everybody behind it, where clearly we say who is responsible and what needs to be done, and a strong resolution. And by not having this right now is something that is frustrating.
Heusgen, the current UN Security Council president, spoke to reporters in New York Thursday after the UN envoy for Libya told council members he was very concerned at the proliferation of weapons in Libya.
He described the humanitarian situation on the ground, which again is dire, with almost 200 deaths and hundreds injured and many people displaced. And then he described where they stand with regard to the return to a political process, where so far there is no progress.
The clashes, which erupted earlier this month, are threatening to ignite a civil war on the scale of the 2011 uprising that toppled and killed dictator Muammar Gaddafi. More than 25,000 people have been displaced in the clashes, according to the United Nations. Malian Prime Minister Soumeylou Boubèye Maïga and his entire government resigned Thursday. President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta's office said in a statement, quote, "The president accepts the resignation of the prime minister and that of the members of the government." The political shakeup comes after a rise in violence in the central region of the country, including the massacre last month of 160 Fulani herders by suspected Dogon hunters. The United Nations reports that over the past year, fighting between the Fulani and Dogon communities has resulted in the deaths of some 600 women, children, and men. 2 weeks ago, a massive demonstration was held in Bamako to protest the government's inability to curb the violence. Mali has been struggling to restore stability ever since Islamic extremists took advantage of a brief military coup in 2012 to seize much of northern Mali. French forces largely proved them out several months later, but a number of jihadists are still active and pockets of violence continues despite the presence of UN peacekeepers. Now, for a deeper discussion into the latest political development, I'm joined by VOA Bambara reporter Modibo Debele. Modibo, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Now, what does this mean for the security of Mali?
And thank you very much. I think we have two main takeaways from these issues. The first one is for the first time in Malian history, the Malian people are holding accountable, the government for its policy decision-making process. Why am I saying this? Because for the first time, we have noticed that the member of parliament from the opposition and majority are teaming up to do a vote of no confidence against the Malian government, even though the government has tried everything it can to not make this happen. Unfortunately, last night, Malian Prime Minister was obliged to resign. And let's remember also, that's the last main takeaway. We have noticed for the first time that the government also, this is a shifting of power with no violence, no bloodshed. That the people, even though they are mad, they put pressure on the representative to make this happen.
So what does this mean now with all those challenges? What does it mean for the president in trying to form a new government?
Right now, Malian expectations are really to have an open government where we can have the opposition and also the majority and the civil society. But let's remember the question that many people are asking, is it going to be the solution? Because this is going to be the sixth prime minister since Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta has taken the power. And the question that many people are raising, is it really the solution? So time will tell us.
Now, with all those challenges and the new developments taking place in Mali, what do you hear from Malians? What do they expect as the next?
Malians are really expecting to have somebody who's really able to handle the insecurity situation. Because let's remember, on March 23rd, more than 170 Fulanis have been killed in Ogosago. And also we have the government is not able to take control of the entire country. We have Kidal, we have Mopti, we have Segu. On a daily basis, civilian, soldier, even the international forces, 14,000. The layman Malian, the basic question they are asking, how come these forces are not able to help the Malian government to tackle the insecurity issue? So they are awaiting somebody that can really fix these issues.
Well, Modibo, we'll be watching to see what comes out next out of Mali. Thank you very much for your insight into this. Modibo Debele is a VOA Bambara reporter. Now, a 3-day national referendum kicks off in Egypt Saturday on proposed changes to the country's constitution that would allow President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to remain in power until 2030. The vote was announced after Parliament on Tuesday approved the amendments, which would also strengthen the role of the military. The expatriates will vote on Friday. VOA's Ladza Hoke reports their concerns that the amendments will further stifle freedoms in Egypt.
El-Sisi has been in power since deposing Egypt's democratically elected President Mohamed Morsi in a military coup in 2013, following mass protests against the Islamist leader's rule. He is currently serving a second term as president, set to end in 2022. The amendments, approved overwhelmingly by a parliament dominated by el-Sisi's supporters, would extend his current term from 4 to 6 years and allow him to run for another 6-year term in 2024.
We have complete trust in the political leadership, and in terms of what was achieved on the ground for stability, security, and safety, we approve of the constitutional amendments.
The amendments also give the military greater influence in political life, grant the president wide control over the judiciary, and extend the jurisdiction of military courts over civilians. Opposition leaders say the amendments would legalize what they call El-Sisi's dictatorship and are calling on voters to reject them.
We are calling on Egyptian citizens who refuse to violate their constitution to confront blatant aggression on their constitution. We are calling on them to break the barrier of fear courageously and vote no to the proposed constitutional amendments.
Egyptian voters are divided on the issue.
I believe that the current constitutional amendments are necessary and important to complete the achievements because the Constitution is not Holy Quran. The Constitution can be adjusted according to the situation in the country.
I strongly oppose the constitutional amendments because they consolidate the military and authoritarian rule. It is unreasonable to be different from the civilized world where the president sits in power for 4 or 5 years and can be elected for one other term.
During a visit to Washington earlier this month, U.S. President Donald Trump praised El-Sisi's leadership. The former general has been influential in the region and is currently the ceremonial head of the African Union. But analysts warn that giving a leader unlimited power is detrimental to freedoms.
Legalizing dictatorship in the Constitution will have dangerous repercussions on the political system when all doors for freedom of expression are sealed and there becomes only one man, one voice, judging all matters. And this will lead to more extremism and frustration.
El-Sisi joins the ranks of authoritarian presidents seeking to expand their power, including Russia's President Vladimir Putin and Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Uganda's top court on Thursday cleared the way for the country's 74-year-old president, Yoweri Museveni, to seek a 6th term in office, upholding a ruling to scrap presidential age limits. The Supreme Court dismissed a challenge by Museveni's opponents, who had appealed against a constitutional court ruling that removed an age cap of 75 for presidential contenders. In handing down the court's majority 4-3 verdict, Chief Justice Bart Katurebe said the appeal failed. The decision now allows Museveni, who has ruled Uganda since seizing power as the head of a rebel army in 1986, to seek re-election in 2021. Attorney General Mwesigwa Rukutana declared the verdict a big win for Uganda. A bill removing presidential age limits was signed into law in December 2017 after a chaotic passage through Parliament that saw legislators engaging in fisticuffs. Museveni is the only president most Ugandans have known in a country where the median age is less than 16. Now, 13 people perished late Thursday in the southeastern province of South Africa during an Easter service after a church wall collapsed following days of heavy rains and strong winds. The KwaZulu-Natal Emergency Medical Services spokesman, Robert Mackenzie, says that at least 29 people with injuries ranging from serious to minor were taken to a hospital for treatment. Mackenzie says there was a strong storm at the time, but no one is certain why the wall suddenly crumbled until the police complete their investigations. Pictures of the scene from the Emergency Services Twitter page showed bricks and piles of debris strewn across the church floor, with pipes and pillars hanging from higher parts of the building. Zimbabwe observed its 39th anniversary of independence Thursday as residents in the southern part of the country hope to obtain closure to the 1980 state-sanctioned massacres that human rights groups say left more than 20,000 people dead. Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa says people are now free to talk about the massacres during the rule of former leader Robert Mugabe. Columbus Mavunga reports from southern Zimbabwe.
In February 1983, soldiers descended on Cholocho and abducted Swangani Ngwenya together with other 8 villagers. The soldiers beat them to death and buried them in a shallow grave. Ngwenya's father, Melwa, says their grave, which is about 5 kilometers down the road, was only waist level deep.
I don't usually come to this place. I feel sorrow and pain since he died. And for the pain and sorrow to go, I have to be given something to console me.
Human rights groups say more than 20,000 people were killed in this region and thousands of others disappeared. President Mnangagwa was Minister of State Security in the 1980s when the killings known as Gukurahundi took place. On state media, Mnangagwa said citizens are now free to talk about Gukurahundi.
I don't see anything wrong debating it. In newspapers, on television, let's debate it. We fear nothing about the debate. It's an internal matter which has happened among us Zimbabweans, which we must discuss amongst ourselves.
It has happened among ourselves. Under Mugabe's rule, people were persecuted for discussing the massacres, and reburials of the victims was prohibited. While Mnangagwa has changed that, 80-year-old Melwa is not satisfied.
He is not sincere. He is blindfolding us. Now he is trying to silence us because we want compensation. If he cares about our cries, and if the government cares about us and has sympathy, it must build me at least a two-bedroom house.
Allowing reburials of victims lying in mass or shallow graves is not enough, say human rights groups.
To just say people can be reburied.
He's not talking about those who disappeared, who were kidnapped and taken away, because all of those people still need to see their people, still need those bones. It is not only those who are in mass or shallow graves who are going to be buried. Everyone will have peace when he knows where his father, daughter, son is lying. He doesn't talk about the women who were raped. He is talking about half of what happened.
71-year-old Opasco Sana in the Matopo region was among those raped. Soldiers took her husband before raping him. She wants compensation for her missing husband, joining Melwa and others who say the government needs to do more than simply acknowledging the massacres. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Cholocho, Zimbabwe.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Still ahead on Africa 54, the redacted Mueller report on Russian collusion is out, but many questions remain. But first, a look at Friday's headlines.
Je voudrais dire que nous considérons cette affaire comme
Now, after 22 months of investigation, the American public and Congress Thursday finally got to see the redacted report of Special Counsel Robert Mueller into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. The report found no evidence of a conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. But Mueller and his team could not make a judgment on whether the president had sought to obstruct justice. Opposition Democrats are seizing on new revelations in the report about the obstruction issue to push for further investigation in Congress. VOA national correspondent Jim Malone reports from Washington.
At the White House, President Donald Trump was upbeat after the release of the Mueller report.
I'm having a good day, too. It was called No Collusion, No Obstruction. There never was, by the way, and there never will be.
But the report paints a different picture on the question of obstruction of justice, detailing numerous instances when the president sought to influence the investigation. At one point, Trump ordered then White House lawyer Don McGahn to have special counsel Robert Mueller fired, says Chad Day of the Associated Press.
Now, McGahn rebuffed this effort, but it shows how the president, and the report quotes him, saw the probe as a possible end to his presidency and, something that would threaten his power.
The report describes numerous contacts between Trump campaign associates and Russians in 2016. But concluded there was a lack of evidence of a criminal conspiracy between the campaign and Russia. But Mueller did not make a judgment on whether the president sought to obstruct justice. The report did not conclude that Trump committed a crime, but neither did it exonerate him. In the end, it was Attorney General William Barr who decided that the evidence of obstruction did not warrant further legal action.
Apart from whether the acts were obstructive, this evidence of non-corrupt motives weighs heavily against any allegation that the president had a corrupt intent to obstruct the investigation.
Democrats were troubled by the detailed accounts of possible presidential obstruction and quickly vowed to investigate further, including House Judiciary Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler.
The special counsel made clear that he did not exonerate the president, and the responsibility now falls to Congress to hold the president accountable for his actions. Congress must get the full unredacted report along with the underlying evidence uncovered by special counsel Mueller.
The lingering questions over presidential obstruction could continue to cast a cloud over the Trump White House, says legal analyst David Abraham.
I'm not sure that the findings constitute a victory for the president, but those claims run contrary both to the facts in regard to the effectiveness of Russian interventions and as to the depth and extent of the obstruction efforts by the White House from the president on down.
The ongoing controversy over the Mueller report makes it likely that the legal and political debate over Trump's actions will drag on indefinitely, says political expert Bill Sweeney.
If this goes on for weeks and months, it will be another divisive issue within a country that is already very strongly divided.
Attorney General Barr has been asked to testify before Congress next month, and Democrats also want to hear from special counsel Mueller himself in the near future. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
It's Music Makers Friday, and joining me now is David Bande, host of VOA's music program, The African Beat. David, welcome again to Africa 54.
Thank you. I'm always excited to be here.
Well, today we are going to play a song from Gile. She is from your native country of Sierra Leone. You know her very well, right? So, as we play the video, which is coming up shortly, what sets Gile apart from other artists in Sierra Leone?
Well, she's a gospel singer, but I tell you, Gile is one of the strongest women in the entertainment industry. Yeah, she's tireless. She worked for everybody. In fact, she created the Sierra Leone Association of Artists and Musicians. She's the leader of that association. When men were fighting to get her out, that who is this woman to come and lead us? But she's a very strong woman, I'm telling you. And I'm always there to give her the backup and support.
Now, you know the most interesting thing when you go on, websites, and especially technology people, like the young people, they know her as a web designer, graphics designer. And also as a Goodwill ambassador.
As a Goodwill ambassador, and she has formed a non-profit organization. She goes back to Africa to help support orphanages, and she does everything. And I ask her sometimes, I say, when do you sleep?
So she's based here.
She's based here in the U.S., yes.
And she keeps going back to Sierra Leone.
She keeps going back to Sierra Leone just to go and help. And she just came back about a few months ago, and she also created the SLAM, Association of Journalists and Musicians, back home in Sierra Leone, and we're going to take the festival back to Sierra Leone.
Now, David, we would like to have her here on the set.
Definitely.
Pretty soon, since she's in America. but we're going to let the viewers see a little more of her music.
Yeah, the song is Mahin.
Yeah, oh yeah, Mahin. What does it mean by the way?
Mahin simply means king. You know, it's a gospel tune, and what better day is it to bring out the king than on a Good Friday?
On a Good Friday.
On a Good Friday. So this is her latest video from her new album that is coming out. So this is the first one that she has released, Mahin. Part of it was shot in Nigeria and in the US. So it is just about praising the king.
All right. David, I'm going to have to say goodbye so we can see more of this kind of music. Thank you very much.
And thank you for having me.
To learn more about David Bande and his popular VOA radio show, visit Facebook and type in the keyword The African Beat to see what time his program can be heard in your area and to learn more about some of his featured artists. So we leave you with Gile and her song Mahin. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.
God of Israel, God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob.